Welcome back, everyone, to IcePicks Fantasy Hockey. I'm your host, Nick Nightingale, and tonight we're going to be talking about goalies. So we're going to go over some tandems, some goalie strategy, some ice picks, and a couple goalies to pass on. And I'm just going to throw a disclaimer out there right off the bat. Goalies are voodoo. Everything I say right now, by the end of the season, could be completely wrong. So don't blast me for anything I'm thinking of, because last year I had a couple takes and I had a couple grabs, and they were huge payoffs for me. For example, a guy like Philip Gustafsson and Anthony Stolarz last year won me a couple of my leagues, and I picked them out of free agency, and nobody thought they'd be good. So now just jumping right into things, we're just going to go right into goalie strategy. And there's so many different takes on like what to do with goalies. Where should I draft a goalie? Should I pick it high? Should I pick low? Zero goalie strategy. I don't really enjoy zero goalie strategy. I much prefer having my goalie position be pretty strong. Now, I'm not saying go draft Hellebuyck in the top 6 picks, but if he drops a little bit and you can get him in the late second, early third, that would be like a ton of value. I would definitely recommend doing that. I probably wouldn't grab a goalie in the top 10 because there's just so many elite players, but, grab a Hellebuyck in second round, late second round. That'd be a no-brainer for me. So my strategy for picking goalies is I make a list of about 5 or 6 goalies, and then I make a list of about 5 or 6 teams that I think are, best teams, best goalies, teams with really good tandems, and I'll just go off of that, right? So this year, my top 5 goalies were Connor Hellebuyck, who's the obvious pick for number 1. Number 2 is Igor Shesterkin, so that might surprise some people. I'm pretty high on New York this year. And then number 3 is Vasilevsky. Every single year, Tampa is just a wagon, right? And then number 4 is Jake Ottinger. Same thing about Dallas, similar to Tampa Bay. They're just a wagon. They got a complete team. And then Adin Hill. Vegas picking up Marner is just unreal for them. Vegas just finds a way to win every single year. Adin Hill's just the man, and he's just going to get the starts and the wins, and yeah, he's my number 5. And then so after I round up my top goalies, I just jump for the top teams. So I'll pick 5 again. So I'm going with the Edmonton Oilers. They're a heavy favorite the last couple of years. And then the Vegas Golden Knights. They're just always a team in the mix somehow. And then this might shock people, but New York Rangers, I think last year was a total fluke. There's no way. There's no way it's going to happen again. JT Miller being captain, I know that was just recently announced. I'm not a fan of that at all for their team with that locker room situation going on. He left a cancerous Canucks team, jumps all the way to the Rangers, who was just as cancerous. And then here we are. He's captain. We'll see what happens. And then Tampa Bay Lightning, they're just always one of the best teams in the league. They're an absolute wagon of a team. They are set on every single position. They have a star. And how could you not pick Tampa be a top 5 team? And then to round it out, my number 5 team is going to be Dallas. And the Stars are just Tampa Bay West. They're just set on every single position. They have a star everywhere. They got Rantanen, they got Robertson, they got Hintz, they got Heiskanen, they got Ottinger and net. They're set everywhere. And then so after I do that, I just kind of look to compare my top teams with my top goalies. And that's just kind of what gives me the idea of guys I actually really want and guys I don't want. And sometimes I don't just want to pick a crappy goalie on a really good team, specifically a team from Alberta, wink wink. And then a couple guys just stand out for me. So Shesterkin for the Rangers, Vasilevsky for Tampa Bay, Ottinger for Dallas, and then Hill for Vegas. And that's the kind of strategy and formula I like to make, just to pick my first goalie. And I don't want to pick prior to the 4th round. And in my next episode, I'm going to go over my full draft strategy. But I just wanted to do goalies right now because I think goalies are just a hot topic, especially with how some goalies performed last year with some Hall of Fame kind of seasons, right? Like Hellebuyck, for example. But in that 1st and 2nd and 3rd round, there's just too many good forwards and strong D-men that you don't want to be passing up on them when there's no guarantee any goalie is just going to be lights out. So as I was saying there, I like to wait to the 4th round, and even if I'm past the 4th round and nobody's drafted goalies yet, maybe besides Hellebuyck or Vasilevsky, I'm just going to wait for somebody to grab that first goalie, and then I'm just praying to God that I'm close to that pick and I can get one of the guys I want. And hopefully I do, because what I like to do is I'll grab that first strong goalie, and then I'm going to wait a few rounds. So let's say I got the guy I wanted in maybe the late 3rd or the 4th round. I'm probably going to wait till about the 7th or 8th round, and then I'm going to see if one of those guys that I picked earlier is still there. And then if he is there, I'm going to pick him, and then I'm totally set for goalies, and I won't draft another goalie for the whole draft. But if one of those guys isn't there, I'm just going to wait a bit, and then maybe I'd wait until later rounds, maybe 12th, 13th, or maybe nobody. And then I'm looking for tandems at that point, or a real sleeper pick, like Jeremy Swayman, for example. And I'm going to talk about more of sleeper kind of picks later. That's kind of my plan. Strong goalie in the 4th-ish round. Wait a bit. Wait till 7th or 8th round. If my other top goalie's there, I'm grabbing him. If not, I'm looking for tandems after the 10th. And now let's say I don't get one of my top goalies. They're all gone by the 4th round. I doubt that would happen, but it could. You never know, right? Maybe you're in a league where goalies are highly valued, where they get a ton of points. Maybe a win's worth like 8 points and a shutout's worth 7 or something, right? So a goalie on any night can get 20 points, or maybe you're in a cats league where, the goalie cats are huge, right? Maybe you got 7 or 8 categories for goalies, and it's similar to how forwards are. So you really want to get those wins. You really want to get all the categories for every single goalie. So leagues like that do happen, and a lot of top goalies will be gone right off the bat. So if I'm in leagues like that, I'm jumping on tandems, like I said earlier, but I might jump a little bit early, like say 9th round instead of post 10th. I might look at, a wall of Stolers kind of situation. I'm hoping to grab them 9th or 10th. And that just kind of rounds up my strategy. So I'm hoping that last little part wouldn't happen in a league I'm in, but it could, right? All your goalies could be gone, and then you're just kind of sitting there like, what should I do? So it's always good to have a nice strategy formulated before anything happens. And now for the second part, we're going to go over some tandems. And I'm just going to pick a couple teams with either some goalie uncertainty or some injury problems in the past. These will be teams that you're going to want to keep an eye on, especially if you're going to follow kind of my strategy where I'm looking at tandems at some point. And we'll start with what I think is the top tandem in the league. And this is going to be more injury related and health related, but it's going to be the Vancouver Canucks. And we're going to go with Thatcher Demko and Kevin Lankinen. And Demko's one of the top goalies in the league, but he's always injured. You're never going to have him for a full season. He's never going to start 50-ish, 60 games. I don't think ever again in his career. And they just signed Kevin Lankinen to a big contract too. And he was lights out last year. He was one of those sleeper goalies that nobody really thought about, but he came in. He did a remarkable job. He was probably the Canucks MVP last year, maybe besides Sherwood and obviously Hughes. But Lankinen really stole the show. And also now with the Canucks decor that's been greatly improved, this is definitely a tandem worth looking at. This might be the earlier tandem if specifically didn't get one of the goalies you wanted. And I'm saying look in the 9th-ish round. Picking up Demko and then Lankinen maybe at the very end of the draft, just to make sure you have both of them. But they're a team that's not going to be as bad as last year. Hopefully the locker room's sorted out. Now for my second tandem, and now this is more like a 1A, 1B situation where, I think the Canucks have the strongest. This next team is right behind them and actually could even be stronger this year too, just because it's a better team in the first place, is the Toronto Maple Leafs with Anthony Stolers and Joseph Woll. And also similar to Vancouver's tandem, this is just an injury and health related one because both these guys have been injured a ton. Last year, Stolers was lights out. He was one of the best goalies in the league right off the bat. And then he was injured. And Woll stepped up and he did a great job too. And he got a bunch of wins. He played a bunch of games. And then, they were both back again. And Stolers ended up taking it, the starter position for a bit. But I still think Woll's a quality goaltender. And I don't see Toronto at any point being totally tied to one goalie. The only problem I have with this tandem is that it's going to be pretty hard to grab Stolers late. His ADP right now is 66 overall. And that's fairly high for a goalie right off the bat. So I think if you're going to go this way, you're going to probably want to grab Stolers early-ish, maybe 5th or 6th round. But that's why I don't really suggest this as the strongest tandem. I think the Vancouver Canucks one's going to be a lot easier to grab. It's going to be way easier to find Demko. Just because his ADP is around 100th, I think it's 97th right now. And that's a lot easier to stomach than grabbing a guy like Stolers to be a tandem at, 66 overall. And for my final tandem, it's going to be for the Detroit Red Wings, and it's going to be John Gibson and Cam Talbot. And this isn't injury related. This is more of a goalie uncertainty situation. John Gibson has been a great goalie in Anaheim, and he just got traded over here. I don't know how it's going to go. Detroit isn't really the strongest team, but I definitely think they're a team that's going to be fighting for a playoff spot this year. And they're going to do whatever it takes to win. So I think that if the John Gibson experiment doesn't work out, Cam Talbot's going to be the guy to step up. And they'll probably go back and forth. They're not going to care too much about, being loyal to a guy. they're just going to go for wins. So anytime a guy goes on a cold streak, that other guy's popping in. So I think it'd be worthwhile to grab both of them. And you can get this tandem very late. You might not even have to draft either of them. This might be one where you can just get both in free agency. But I'd still suggest grabbing John Gibson in just a later round. You don't have to grab him too early. You might be able to get him like sometime past the 15th round. His ADP right now is 160th overall. So there's a very likely chance that you can get this guy whenever you really want to. And then Cam Talbot's most likely not even going to get drafted. So you can just pick him up, the second your draft's done or whenever your free agency period opens up. Or if you want to take a really big risk, you just grab Talbot the second John Gibson doesn't do good. And then right then and there, you didn't even waste a draft pick on him. All right, and on to probably the funnest part for me, and I know the part I'm going to look back on and probably shake my head, but we're going to go for 3 goalies to pass on. These are just going to be total hot takes. These might be some of the worst takes you've ever heard, and this might be some of the best takes you ever heard. This is one of those, there's no middle ground. It's either going to be awesome or horrible. Bear that in mind. Take this with a grain of salt. This is just what I think, and this doesn't make it correct at all. And with that in mind, I'm coming in hot. Connor Hellebuyck is a guy I'm passing on. He's going way too early, I think. I don't think Winnipeg Jets are going to have a similar year. I think they're still going to be a really good team, but there's no way they're going to be the best team. And I don't think Hellebuyck can match that same kind of Hall of Fame-esque season again. And now for hot take number 2. Darcy Kemper for the LA Kings is another guy. He's going to go really high, and I'm just not sure how LA is going to be this year. I think their decor really stepped off. Their decor just doesn't look great. Their best guy's Doughty. Doughty's awesome, but he's getting kind of washed up. Kopitar says he's retiring at the end of this year, so I think that just kind of leads to the whole team, I think, declining, and that's why I'm going to say goalie number 2 to pass on is Darcy Kemper. And for the final goalie, this is not just a goalie. This is going to be a whole team. And I'm sorry, Buffalo fans, but pretty much any goalie that's going in front of that team, I'm going to say pass on. It's pretty harsh. My favorite team's the Vancouver Canucks, and we're just Buffalo West. Vancouver East, my Buffalo Sabre bros, you guys are just in a tough spot. I just saw that 6K is not starting for you guys right now. He's going to be injured for the first little bit. It just feels bad to say this, but Buffalo in general, I just wouldn't touch any Buffalo goalies unless you really need to stream something and just hope to get maybe a category win. Avoid Buffalo. And maybe just by saying this, I totally jinxed myself, and Buffalo's going to be the best team in the league. Who knows, right? Anything can happen. So maybe we'll look back at this at the end of the season, and this will be my hottest of all hot takes, and passing on Hellebuyck is going to be the worst thing you ever did. And now for the final part of today's episode, it's going to be my goalie ice picks. These are going to be 3 goalies that I think you should be grabbing and aiming for at least 1 or 2 of these guys on your team. And we're going to start it off with Jeremy Swayman of the Boston Bruins. And Boston's not going to have that bad of a record, I don't think. They have a lot of decent pieces, and I think their decor is going to be a little bit better. McAvoy's fully back. He's healthy. He's good to go. So I think their decor just got shored up a bit too. Jeremy Swayman is still, I think, one of the top goalies in the league, and his current ADP is 109th, so that should be a really easy guy to pick up. He has a ton of upside, and I think his floor is pretty safe too. Even if Boston doesn't do that great, he still puts up decent stats. And then we're going to move on to Karel Vejmelka of the Utah Mammoth. Especially now with the recent news that came out that Connor Ingram isn't going to be playing for Utah anymore, it's safe to say Vejmelka is probably going to get another 60 starts this year. I think they'll just run him pretty much every single day. Utah is a team on the rise. I think they're a playoff team. I love their team so much. They're one of the teams that I'm all in on. And Vejmelka, he's going really late. His current ADP is 141st overall. That's insane value that late. If you need a goalie and you've missed out on a ton of guys, he's their guaranteed starter, and I would not pass up on him. And then for my final ice pick, this is going to be a pretty safe one, so I'm kind of over the hot takes right now. It's going to be Adin Hill of the Vegas Knights, and I'm just saying him because his ADP right now is 57th, and if you need a top goalie, he's kind of my 5th guy I would choose for my own strategy there. He's really good value picking around 5th-ish. Maybe you can get him a little bit later, maybe in the 6th round. If you go off what my strategy is, I like to have one really strong goalie, like I was saying. And I think Adin Hill is a ton of value. Vegas is a really good team, and Adin Hill is going to get the majority of starts. Their schedule is really good for a single goalie, as they don't have too many back-to-backs, which is great to have a starting goalie not play too many back-to-backs, because then you're not losing a couple games to the backup throughout the season. And that's going to wrap up today's episode. So going forward, once the season starts, I'm going to be doing a quick hit of news of anything that's kind of happened injury-wise or trades, anything that's big and you need to know right away. I'm just going to shoot it out right at the beginning of the show. I'm just going to try to give a lot of quick info right off the bat, and then we'll jump into the episode. I just want to say thank you for joining the show. Thank you for listening. And if you have any comments or recommendations or, any type of info that you want me to go over on the show, there's going to be a link in the description on how you can either text me or email me. And if you want to support the show, there's going to be a link in the description to my Buzzsprout. And one of the perks to supporting the show is going to be you can send me in your team that you drafted. And I'm going to go over every single pick and every single player and give you a grade. And then after the initial grade, we'll go back at the end of the season and I'm going to go over each and everybody's team. And I think it'd be fun to go over it again after the season's finally wrapped up and you can see all the bad takes and the good takes. All right, thanks again, everyone, and I hope to see you next week on IcePicks Fantasy Hockey.